Good morning and welcome to the Standing Committee's meeting for Wednesday, February 14th, 2024. All council meetings will be live streamed on the city's website. And we're reminding all guest speakers that starting today, please do not turn your microphones off. Just for guests, council members can do what they wish. Will the clerk please take the roll?
Mr. Charlin.
Here.
Mr. Coghill. Ms. Gross. Mr. Lavelle.
Here.
Mr. Mosley.
Here.
Mrs. Cal-Smith. Mrs. Warwick.
Here.
Mr. Wilson. Mrs. Strasburger, Chair.
Here.
5 members present.
Thank you. Our next order of business is public comment. I would like to remind all speakers that the rules of council state that comments are limited to matters of concern, official action, or deliberation, which are or may be before City Council. Profanity will not be permitted. Please state your name and neighborhood for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Our first registered speaker is Howard Slaughter, Jr.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
My name is Dr. Howard Slaughter. I just want to speak briefly about 2 communities that we are working in. One is Homewood and one is Larmer. We are very interested in purchasing the opportunity to build new homes. We have built 7 homes in Homewood already. We've invested $2,187,000 in Homewood. We built and/or rehab 6 homes in Larmer already. That investment is over $2.1 million. So we're committed to the community. We build, and not only do we build, we also provide the mortgage. We provide a 30-year, 0% interest rate mortgage for the families that we serve in the communities. 95% of our homes have gone to minorities. Several have gone to veterans as well, and we're very excited about the opportunity to continue building in Larmer on Lincoln Avenue and in Homewood on Tioga, where several of our current developments already exist. I know I don't have much more time, but I wanted to share that we are the largest Habitat for Humanity affiliate in southwestern Pennsylvania, and our work provides an economic boost to the communities. And most importantly, homeownership is the key for generational wealth for many Americans. And we are very pleased to be able to present our interest in continuing that effort in Homewood and in Larmer. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next registered speaker is Evan Mirapal. Is Evan Mirapal with us?
No, he's not on.
Okay. Seeing that there are no further registered speakers, we will now take comments from those in the audience wishing to speak. Are there any speakers wishing to speak? You can come to the podium. Any further speakers? There being no further speakers, we will now move on to our standing committee's agenda. And our first committee is Finance and Law, chaired by myself.
Deferred Papers, Bill 89. Resolution amending Resolution 909 of 2023, entitled Resolution Authorizing the Fee Schedule for 2024, pursuant to Chapter 170 of the City Code, to reduce the cost of employee parking.
I believe it is the wish of the bill sponsor to hold for 2 weeks.
Motion to hold 2 weeks.
Second.
All those in favor? Any discussion here? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have held the bill for 2 weeks. Bill 110.
Bill 110, Resolution amending Resolution Number 88 of 2023, which authorized the mayor and the director of city planning to enter into an amended professional services agreement with Bromberg and Associates, LLC, for effective communication services for city meetings and events by exercising the contract option to extend the term for 1 year, adding the city clerk as a signatory, and increasing the total spend by $150,000 for a new not to exceed amount of $478,976.
To approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Bill 111.
Bill 111, Resolution authorizing the issuance of a warrant in favor of Spillman Thomas and Battle, PLLC for expert legal services in connection with the litigation matter in the United States District Court for the Western District of Pennsylvania for an amount not to exceed $95,767.99 over 1 year.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Affirmative recommendation. Bill 112.
Bill 112, resolution authorizing the issuance of a warrant in favor of Thompson Reuters West for legal subscription services for an amount not to exceed $7,034.19 over 1 year.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Affirmative recommendation. Bill 113.
Bill 113, resolution authorizing the issuance of a warrant in favor of Kittleson LLC for expert witness services in connection with 2 matters filed in the Allegheny County Court of Common Pleas for an amount not to exceed $14,675.33.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Affirmative recommendation. Bill 114.
Bill 114, resolution authorizing the issuance of a warrant in favor of Kroll Associates, Inc. for expert witness services in connection with the litigation matter in the United States District Court for the Western District of Pennsylvania for an amount not to exceed $24,008.13 over 1 year.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Affirmative recommendation. Bill 115.
Bill 115, resolution authorizing the issuance of a warrant payable in favor of National League of Cities for 1 year membership dues in an amount not to exceed $18,499.
Motion to approve.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Affirmative recommendation. Bill 116.
Bill 116, resolution authorizing the City of Pittsburgh and the Department of Finance to extend the lease and tower use agreement with Crown Communication LLC at 1330 Hassler Street for 4 additional 5-year terms.
Motion to approve.
With discussion. Second.
With discussion, Council President?
Yes. Is there someone here to speak to this? Direct.
Sorry. Good morning. Jennifer Gula, the Finance Director and Treasurer for the city.
How much do we currently charge them?
We don't. So this is an agreement that was actually started in 1997, and it was basically in-kind services. Crown Castle built and maintained the cell tower that's on the site, which is also the 5th District DPW area. So this is looking to renew that, but we've been actually working with outside counsel to draft an agreement which would take into consideration compensation.
To the amount of?
Currently, the agreement we're looking at is like $2,000 a month, and then at each additional year it will increase by 3%.
And why is it for 20 years?
Just, I guess this looks like we actually enlisted outside counsel to look at these agreements to make sure that we're following current best practices and what other agreements that have been issued in other areas for these telecom towers actually look like. So sort of a little bit outside of finance's purview, but
Was that the CTC consulting group that we hired?
no.
No.
This is finance outside counsel, and it's Frost Brown Todd.
Were we able to see the report?
We don't have a report. So finance was only a few years ago, a group was contracted in order to do a study of all our telecom
Right.
licenses and assets. And we were just a small portion of that. I think most of it was headed up by IMP and DOMI. And I don't believe that there was a report that was completed or one that actually involved some of the ground and or tower leases that would be under finances. So we don't have, there isn't any information.
Are we able, sorry, are we able to review the report that they did previously?
That's why I said I don't know that there is one or one that's complete. That I would have to have Domi actually submit it. I could look for it and see if they have it that we could share.
My concern is, as we enter into a 20-year lease, are we getting the highest market rate value for what that is, considering the amount of income that we're going to need as a city in the coming years? And as of right now, I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. Yeah, I will see if we can get a copy of whatever they do have that they can share and get it to all council members today. So you'll have it before a vote. So.
If members are willing, I prefer to hold it for a week so we can actually review the report to know that we are in line with market conditions across the country with other cities, and that ensuring that 2,000 is sort of the going rate, if that's fair.
That's fair.
Okay.
We do have another,
Sure.
before the motion, Councilperson Warwick.
Yeah, so just a quick question, and this is going to be a question for IMP, but I thought I'd raise it since we're talking about this. I've been contacted by constituents, in particular from my district, Squirrel Hill and Greenfield has pockets of really terrible cell service. And so the question is like, bumping the city up, forgive me, but I believe 5G, I'm not sure what all that means, but what these contracts could possibly have to do with that and, and improving cell service across the city, which would obviously be an IMP question, but maybe for next week or whenever we bring this up again. Yeah? Okay. That's all. Thanks.
Any further discussion?
Motion to hold 1 week?
Motion to hold 1 week.
Second.
Second. All those in favor of a 1 week hold, say aye.
Aye.
The bill is held for 1 week. Thank you, Director.
You're welcome.
This moves us on to Bill 120.
Bill 120, Resolution Amending Resolution 2024-0031, entitled Providing for the Conveyance by the City of Pittsburgh of Certain Property, having been placed for sale to adjoining property owners in conjunction with the City of Pittsburgh Side Yard Program, items A through N, A 2825 Webster Avenue, B 2823 Webster Avenue, C 5163 Hillcrest, D 415 North Graham, E 229 Shetland Avenue, which was deleted, F 6506 Meadow Street, G 7042 Kedron, H 1050 Wheeler, I 0 Oakwood, J 0 Oakwood, K 5874 Douglas, L 516 Cedarhurst, M 3003 Zephyr, N 419 Marshall Avenue, as to add item E back in 229 Shetland Avenue.
Motion to approve.
We have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Affirmative recommendation. Now that moves us on to invoices. We have a motion to approve invoices.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Invoices are approved. That moves us on to P cards. Do we have a motion to approve P cards?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
P cards are approved. That moves us on to Public Works and Infrastructure Committee, chaired by Councilperson Warwick.
Supplemental paper, Bill 139, Resolution Amending Resolution 838 of 2023, which provided for an agreement or agreements with MS Consultants, Inc. for costs
That got held 2
associated
weeks.
with the preliminary engineering phase for the California Avenue
Except for
Bridge
the one we
project,
just held.
providing for the payment of the cost thereof not to exceed $844,796.01, reimbursable at 100%. This amendment adjusts only the accounts authorized to enter into this contract at no additional cost to the city.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Affirmative recommendation. That moves us on to Human Resources Committee chaired by Councilman Charlin.
Bill 98, resolution authorizing the mayor and the director of the Department of Human Resources and Civil Service to enter into an agreement or agreements with Optum Connect Your Care for services relating to the administration of the City of Pittsburgh's flexible spending account program for a sum not to exceed $40,500 over 3 years and for the payment of the cost thereof.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Affirmative recommendation. Bill 99.
Bill 99, resolution authorizing the mayor and the director of the Department of Human Resources and Civil Service to enter into an agreement or agreements with P&A Group for services relating to the administration of the City of Pittsburgh Consolidated Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act program for a sum not to exceed $15,000 over 1 year and for the payment of the cost thereof.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Affirmative recommendation. That moves us on to Bill 100.
Bill 100, resolution providing that the City of Pittsburgh enter into a professional services agreement and/or contract with consultants and/or service providers for professional services in connection with civil service and MPO ETC, required assessment and evaluation of public safety candidates, and providing for the payment of the cost thereof, cost not to exceed $95,000.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Affirmative recommendation. Bill 101.
Bill 101, resolution authorizing the mayor and the director of the Department of Human Resources and Civil Service to enter into an agreement or agreements with Work Partners Life Solutions for services relating to the administration of the City of Pittsburgh's Employee Assistance Program for a sum not to exceed $49,500 over 1 year and for the payment of the cost thereof.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Affirmative recommendation. That moves us on to Land Use and Economic Development Committee chaired by Councilman Wilson.
Deferred papers, Bill 2023-2089, ordinance amending the Pittsburgh Code, Title 9, Zoning Code, Article 5, Use Regulations, Chapter 911, Primary Uses, as Section 911.02, Use Table, and Article 6, Development Standards, Chapter 914, Parking, Loading, and Access at Section 914.02, Off-Street Parking Schedules, and adding Section 9.12.09.b, Child Care Accessory Use at Chapter 912, Accessory Uses and Structures, all to amend child care uses and standards.
Jeez.
Second.
Motion to approve discussion?
Second.
Discussion. Councilman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank the City Planning Department, especially Corey Lehman and Kate Rakes for all their work in coordination with my office to make sure that we're writing a bill that will fit within the standards of our zoning code and will stay in the test of time. I also want to thank the sponsors of the bill. Thank Councilman Gross and all current and prior members that have worked on child care issues relating to making child care more accessible to people of Pittsburgh. Specifically, this bill cuts the red tape to make sure that daycares, child care centers that are smaller than larger daycare, with smaller numbers, typically in our neighborhoods, to operate by right instead of having to go through all the hoops that we would require that previously, as long as this bill is passed. And also, one major point of this is to remove the parking requirement for those child care centers. So not only are we doing one thing by cutting the red tape, they have a license with the state, so they're already verified as a credible child care center. And what this does is just makes it easier for this to happen, especially in a time whenever it's really hard to find daycare, child care in the city of Pittsburgh, probably all across the nation. and it's just a good measure that we can take here at City Council. And I joked with Corey Lehman yesterday. I said, as we continue to cut all this red tape, I'm afraid you're not going to be, afraid you're not going to have a job anymore. But he kind of laughed a little bit, and he thinks he'll still be here. But anyway, it's all in good fun. I say that because, I know that this council is eager to make sure that not only, child care centers are more readily available, for people who want to run it. It's more, there's not that red tape in front of them, but also just housing in general. I know this council is eager to, look at the zoning code more deeply and continue to cut that red tape so that we can make sure we're building more housing. So it all relates together, but we're definitely going to need someone like Corey Lehman and the planning department and this administration all working together so we continue to make changes to the zoning code that are meaningful and impactful for people of Pittsburgh. With that, eager to vote as an aye on this one to make childcare more accessible and more affordable in Pittsburgh.
Thank you, Councilman. Any further discussion? I'll simply reiterate what I said yesterday at the public hearing, that grateful to you and to Councilwoman Gross for your leadership, and anything that we can do to make high quality childcare more accessible to more people in Pittsburgh, where we know it's a crisis, we know it's not affordable enough, and we know that then on the other end, for especially smaller childcare centers in home, they're on razor thin profit margins, that anything we can do to make it easier to run and to thrive, the better off our families, and then, in turn, our economy in Pittsburgh is. So thank you for your leadership here. With that, all those in favor of Bill 89, say aye.
2089.
Excuse me. Of Bill 2089, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Affirmative recommendation. That moves us on to Bill 121.
Bill 121, Resolution further amending Resolution Number 886 of 2021, effective December 27, 2021, as amended, entitled Resolution Adopting and Approving the 2022 Capital Budget and the 2022 Community Development Block Grant Program and the 2022 through 2027 Capital Improvement Program, by removing Poise Foundation as a grant recipient along with People of Origin Rightfully Loved and Wanted Poor Law, and authorizing a subsequent agreement for a total cost of $40,000.
Motion to
approve.
approve. Oh, sorry. Brief discussion.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. Councilperson Warwick.
Yeah, thanks. So just to briefly clarify, so Poor Law is an organization operating in Hazelwood. They provide after-school care and sports programming and summer programming for the kids, as well as other programming for seniors, and a number of other services. So this was money that was originally allocated to them when I very first came to office, and there was a snafu with the IRS and an issue with the 501c3, and then we had Poise as the fiscal sponsor, but then the legal requirements seemed to be a bit of a moving target. At any rate, everything is resolved with the 501c3, and now we're back to just getting them the money that they've been waiting for a very long time, over a year. So that's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Affirmative recommendation. That moves us on to Bill 122.
Bill 122, Resolution further amending Resolution Number 840 of 2019, effective January 1, 2020, as amended, entitled Resolution Adopting and Approving the 2020 Capital Budget and the 2020 Community Development Block Grant Program, approving the 2020 through 2025 Capital Improvement Program to correct the JDE job number for St. Michael's Food Bank.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Affirmative recommendation. That moves us on to Intergovernmental and Educational Affairs Committee, chaired by Councilman Mosley.
Bill 103, resolution authorizing the Pittsburgh Land Bank to acquire all the city's right, title, and interest, if any, in and to the publicly owned property in the 4th Ward of the City of Pittsburgh, designated in the Deed Registry Office of Allegheny County as Block 28P, Lot 333, 3319 Niagara Street, Council District Number 3, at no cost to the city.
Motion to approve with discussion.
Second.
With discussion, Councilman?
Yeah, I believe we have Director Stadelman. If you could come up to the table.
The table is fine, thank you.
Good morning, Director. Pretty much, not actually pretty much, all these various resolutions that are coming up, are all involve the land bank. But if you could, talk a little bit about, this particular property and then how it fits in to the properties that have moved over the last 2 months, and kind of talk about the progress that the land bank has made, in 2024 so far, and
Sure.
the prospects for the future.
Would you like me to run through each one or just start with 3319 Niagara?
However you feel like.
Okay, I'll start with this one and then we'll see. So 3319 Niagara had been placed in the property reserve, which is now a closed system in the city's inventory, and by Oakland Planning and Development. And so the land bank has been working with CDCs over the last year and a half to both quiet title on property in the reserve and also help to figure out what still needs to remain in the reserve, what's ready to move along. So OPDC expressed that they no longer had capacity or interest in this particular property. So we went to find another partner who might be able to acquire and stabilize the property. It seemed like a really wonderful opportunity to potentially preserve a structure for affordable housing, because it's very centrally located, lots of great transit right in Oakland, and it's also a row house, which I love to talk about at our meetings all the time. It's more expensive to tear a row house down because you have to repair both party walls, so it'd be a great opportunity to preserve that as well. So Rising Tide Partners is the designated end user for this property. So the land bank will acquire as soon as it arrives in our inventory. It'll probably take about 4 months from today to transfer to the land bank, and then Rising Tide will immediately begin stabilization. So there is no longer active damage occurring to the structure and the next door neighbors, who the land bank is also in contact with because they are concerned about their own properties. And then once that we have quieted title, we will then transfer to Rising Tide, who will then work to fundraise and find a partner to create affordable housing, rehab the structure as affordable housing.
Thank you. And I guess we can move on to the next property as well. And I don't know if we have to go through an exhaustive list of all these properties, but I think it's important for the public. As we know, the land bank has been a big topic in the news over the past, I would say, 18 to 24 months. And I think it's important to show the public how much progress the land bank has made, but also, how it works, so folks can learn more about, what the land bank actually is, because I think there's still a lot of mystery amongst the public of what the land bank does and how it's working to improve the quality of life of city residents and improve the quality of life across communities in the city.
Councilman, point of order, if there is the intention to talk about each of these bills related to the land bank, what I would suggest is, since we currently are considering only Bill 103, that we take a vote,
okay,
and then we can read all the subsequent bills together and discuss them together. Would that be
sure
satisfactory? Okay. So we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor of Bill 103, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Affirmative recommendation. And if we can read Bill 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, and 9, all of them together, that would be great.
Bill 104, resolution authorizing the land bank to acquire all the city's right, title, and interest, if any, in and to the publicly owned property in the 20th Ward of the City of Pittsburgh, designated in the Deed Registry Office of Allegheny County as Block 20A, Lot 106, 1461 Chartiers Avenue, Council District Number 2, at no cost to the city. Bill 105, resolution authorizing the Pittsburgh Land Bank to acquire all the city's right, title, and interest, if any, in into the publicly owned property in the 23rd Ward of the City of Pittsburgh, designated in the Deed Registry Office of Allegheny County as Block 24F, Lot 102, Chestnut Street, Council District Number 1, at no cost to the city. Bill 106, resolution authorizing the Pittsburgh Land Bank to acquire all the city's right, title, and interest, if any, in into the following publicly owned properties in the 12th Ward of the City of Pittsburgh, designated in the Deed Registry Office of Allegheny County as Block 125B, Lots 281 and 283, Lincoln Avenue, Council District Number 9, at no cost to the city. Bill 107, resolution authorizing the Pittsburgh Land Bank to acquire all the city's right, title, and interest, if any, in into the publicly owned properties in the 20th Ward of the City of Pittsburgh, designated in the Deed Registry Office of Allegheny County as Block 19C, Lots 184 and 213, Block 20L, Lot 250, Block 20M, Lots 195, 203, and 228, Block 20R, Lot 17, and Block 42P, Lot 7, 211 and 911 Amherst Street, 1042 Lakewood Street, 304 and 320 Lorenz Avenue, 1021 Rue Grand View Street, 1012 Chartiers Avenue, and 1017 Fairdale Street, Council District Number 2, at no cost to the city. Bill 108, resolution authorizing the Pittsburgh Land Bank to acquire all the city's right, title, and interest, if any, in into the publicly owned property in the 24th Ward of the City of Pittsburgh, designated in the Deed Registry Office of Allegheny County as Block 47M, Lot 214, 1815 Rialto Street, Council District Number 1, at no cost to the city. And Bill 109, resolution authorizing the Pittsburgh Land Bank to acquire all the city's right, title, and interest, if any, in into the publicly owned properties in the 13th Ward of the City of Pittsburgh, designated in the Deed Registry Office of Allegheny County as Block 175B, Lots 57, 58, 60, and 61, Tioga Street, Council District Number 9, at no cost to the city.
Do we have a motion to approve all these bills?
So move.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
No, go ahead.
Councilman, would you like to continue?
Yes, if you could just talk briefly.
Yeah, I'll just I'll make a couple of highlight
Sure.
a couple of things about these bills, and then I'll pause for questions.
Sure.
So I want to point out that the majority of the properties before council today, they are single-family homes and single lots. They're small developments. You'll notice that for Bill 0106 and 0109, those are lots that we are looking to transfer to Habitat for Humanity. They'll be building 3 to 4 single-family homes on Tioga Street and on Lincoln Avenue. PHDC, the Pittsburgh Housing Development Corporation, is a fellow URA affiliate, and they do single-family rehabs that they then sell to 80% AMI buyers. So at this point in time, with the capacity that the land bank has, what's very important for us is that we have partners that have the capacity to step in right away and begin that stabilization work. Many of these structures have been sitting for several years, and so we want to make sure we have someone there who's able to offer that expertise. And what we certainly hope to, as we build and grow the land bank, to bring that expertise in-house so we can continue to expand our capacity.
And my last question, so you anticipate the majority of these properties would be affordable housing, or will they all be 80 AMI, or will there be a mix?
Yes, and I don't know exactly what Habitat for Humanity's restrictions are off the top of my head, but I think especially with this large amount going to PHDC, for this batch, yes, their majority will be dedicated to affordable housing. Yeah, 80% AMI.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have Councilperson Warwick, followed by Councilman Wilson, followed by Councilman Cockel.
Yeah, thanks. So, just So all of these properties are going to CDCs or other nonprofit organizations, correct?
The exceptions would be, so 0105, the lot on Chestnut Street, that will be a private owner. That
Okay.
is a small neighborhood cafe that has been using a city-owned lot for some time, just as seating. It's really small. It's right across from a fire station, so there really isn't any other use for it. But they've received funding to make improvements to that lot to make it more usable and accessible. And so we've stepped in to quickly acquire the property so that the business owner can make those improvements this summer with the funding they've received. So that would be an exception. And then 1815 Rialto will be a property listed for sale. So that one will not be, it's possible someone could apply who either fits an affordable housing criteria. We could have a nonprofit come in and apply for it that does affordable housing, but at this point in time, 1815 Rialto would not be affordable either.
Okay, so you'll be selling that one as is, just to sort of get like what the options are on the table. Okay, so you'll be selling that one as is. And just so, again, none of these are in my district, I'm just curious. So for the Niagara one, right, so Rising Tide, you said they take that over in 4 months, right? Now, do we know, when we do that, do we know that they have that they will be able to quickly rehabilitate that property and get it in shape?
Yes, they've.
Okay. I mean, do they have the funding in place?
They have the funding in place, and that's a requirement for the land bank to move forward with any of these sales. And then we will work with them, likely in the next 4 months, we'll work with finance to get them additional access to the building so they can flesh out a renovation plan. So they'll have to have that completed before the property comes into our inventory so that we can execute on stabilization. Okay,
so before so sort of now they have a chance to kind of get the ball rolling on their end to really, okay, good. And my last question, sort of leading up to this, so we had a call recently, right, specifically with Rising Tides and yourself and my office. So I wanted to, because of course there is folks who are concerned about, the CDC is buying all the properties, and is there a chance for homeowner, for community folks in whatever capacity, whether that's as co-ops or as individuals, or like you said with the business example, to have a chance at getting these properties. So I wanted to give you a chance to sort of, and I know it's not a fleshed out program, but to sort of talk a bit about your idea for a program in Hazelwood.
Yeah, and I'll mention too with these properties, I think to me what's so exciting about the land bank as a tool is that we can take a chance on this chunk of single family homes and say we're going to do everything we can to rehab them, for our partners to find that funding to turn them into that affordable home. But it's always possible we could run into something that is much more cumbersome or expensive than what we were expecting. And so with the land bank, we have that almost like a release valve of, we can't turn this property into an affordable home because the numbers don't make sense, but we can still be responsible and we can be expedient in our sale of that property. Which right now, I think when nonprofits run into that problem, what happens is the property then just continues to sit for many years. So of course what we're so excited about to kind of grow into this year is acquiring single family homes where we can complete light stabilization, quiet the title. Once that title is quieted and that property is ready for sale, we will then list it out onto the market, and we will make that property available for owner occupants, is who of course we're going to target and who we hope to serve. And then that gives us the ability we're a patient seller who wants to work with that buyer and make sure we're getting folks into the property that will want to be long-term residents of the community.
Yes. So more specifically, because I did like this idea quite a bit, and again we would talk with the community and present it, but sort of having like a batch, like you showed a map of like, well, maybe these would be good candidates. I don't know if you want to elaborate a bit.
Oh yeah, and just how that we're able to, we have the data right now to know where, the condition of the structures from PLI inspections, and that there is a lot of data available as we will eventually start looking at the private tax delinquent market to be able to pull properties in as well. Is that?
Yeah, we'll just sort of like to run a pilot where where there's, a map, so it would take within Hazelwood, for example, right? And identify whatever, maybe 10, I can't remember.
Yes,
what we
depending on
talked
what
about.
the inventory looks like. Could be 2,
Yeah.
could be 10,
And then,
and based on condition.
right,
Yeah.
and then launch a pilot where we reach out to the community and they sort of have an opportunity to really
Yeah.
have,
and-
sort of, you can't technically give people a first chance, but you can make them aware of the program and whatnot.
Yes, and have the opportunity to tour the building, and especially if we're working with buyers who might be using a mortgage rehab product. That usually takes 3 or 4 visits to work through that renovation plan and secure that funding. And so we'll be able to provide that time and access and remove the barriers that exist now for residents who would like to purchase single-family homes.
Okay, great.
Thank
That's all
you.
for me. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilman Wilson.
Thank you. How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good. Thanks for coming to the table. I wanted to ask a couple questions. One for 105, where there is the coffee shop. Why would it be best for us to, do this action where we're taking it, we're gonna, send it over to the land bank if this is approved, I guess next Tuesday.
So there's a couple of benefits. So one is that we have a bit of an expedited quiet title process. As much as quiet title can be expedited, it still will be about 6 to 9 months to complete that process. But because we have the dedicated funding and a third-party law firm who could move quickly, kind of streamline that process. Secondly, as soon as this property enters into our inventory, we have the flexibility to enter into a license agreement with that buyer, who can then immediately begin to access the property and make those plans for improvements. I think that's really important here because I don't think there's anything in place right now that covers the current use of the lot. And fortunately, unfortunately, that's kind of common in the city. So we're excited to join the effort to help to right size some of those uses.
Thanks. I'm mostly asking for the public. This is a an effort that I fully support. I just like to hear when you explain why we're doing all this. I did want to ask, why wouldn't this qualify for the side lot sale?
So it's not that it doesn't qualify, and I don't want to speak off the top of my head and misremember whether or not it qualifies. I'm not sure that it's not that it doesn't qualify, but the trouble is that in a hotter real estate market like Spring Garden on Chestnut Street, if you receive multiple applicants for this property, the city has to go through a whole auction process, and so they're not able to give this business owner access to begin work with the grant funding that they received to make those improvements. So, it is just if you go to visit the lot, it's very clear. It's you really can't build on it. The city actually purchased it in order to build the fire station that's there in the 70s.
Oh, really?
So there really isn't.
I didn't know that history. That's interesting.
It's very small. It's a very small lot, and it's been used for a long time as that outdoor seating for the.
Yeah, this is great. This is something
the business.
Back in the day in our office, we identified this lot as one that is an example of how they're currently using it. We need to make sure that they're the ones that for a lot of reasons, like then their insurance is the user a lot. They're going to incorporate that into their insurance of the other property, or I guess they have to buy a separate insurance. But the whole thing is that they have HVAC system on that side, like bringing everything into compliance. So looking forward to that. Thanks. But just as that comes up, I think that people are going to wonder, like, why can't I just go through the side lot program versus paying more, because side lot is $200 versus this will be significantly more.
Right. Yes. And that's an important point too, that this will be much more expensive to purchase through the land bank. And any time that we are talking to a potential buyer, we are explaining the city's process as well and explaining to
Yeah.
people the pros and cons of choosing to purchase through the city versus the land bank. And so we have had some folks that do choose to continue with the city's process because it might just work a little bit better for their particular use in their particular neighborhood.
And one other question that relates to, you continue to talk about stabilization, all the stabilization we want to do, then to sell it. Can you explain whether or not PLI signs off of the transfer whenever we look at properties and say we don't want to stabilize this? Like, are they signing off in a way that gives us a guarantee that there isn't like an emergency demo that should be done?
So I wouldn't call it signing off, but PLI publishes their active demolition list. And so anything that is on that demolition list, we're always checking before we move forward with any kind of property transfer request that we're not pulling things off of that list. And then also kind of speaking to why it's important that we have these partners that have the capacity to do that review. Our partners have toured these properties. PHDC has walked through every structure that they've requested and done a review to determine that they believe that a rehab is possible. So we have multiple eyes on the property to make sure that we're not taking something that, there's no floors inside once we acquire it. So that due diligence occurs before the property is requested.
Great. All right, thanks.
Thank you. So for first round still, we have Councilman Coghill.
Hi, Sally.
Good morning.
Good morning. First of all, I want to say it's very encouraging to see the amount of properties that you're transferring and you're up and running. I wanted to ask you first, we keep referring to PHDC. Who is PHDC?
So it's Pittsburgh Housing and Development Corporation.
Okay.
They are an affiliate of the Urban Redevelopment Authority. They sit right downstairs from us. And Richard Snipe is the executive director. I think he was in council a couple of times in December. And I think the organization's been around for several decades and has a long track record of rehabbing single-family homes.
Okay, because I always get confused because I have a PHDC in
You do,
Pittsburgh,
yes, and we would
Pittsburgh
love
Hispanic
to work with them too.
Development Corporation, and they are actually in the housing. They are, they started to venture down that road, and they've been, they're very capable. They're a very good organization. So, okay, so not my PHDC.
Yeah.
I got you. So it's good. Okay.
But we're ready to work with them if we'd
yeah,
love to have
right.
a conversation
Yeah,
for sure.
they would love to have that conversation with you. I'm sure. For they have many people in line waiting for housing, so that would be great to kind of make that connection with you and them. I could set that up with Guillermo maybe, and you two could talk.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you stabilize, okay, so is the applicant who is going to refurbish the property the ones that stabilize, or do we contract that out separately?
At this point in time, the applicant is performing the stabilization.
Right.
I would like to get to the point where we can manage that stabilization in-house. It would require additional staff to do so. But yeah, so at the moment, we're identifying the end user who also has the capacity to do that stabilization right away and deal with all of the paperwork and requirements. We have prevailing wage and other state and federal requirements to meet with spending that money. So it's important we have a partner at this time that can handle all of those additional requirements.
So once they become, once they fall into your hands, these properties, is it then that they apply to look at the property? Is that how they start, or?
So in this case, PHDC, they had actually toured these. I think they toured them twice. In the last year and a half, and PHDC works with city finance and I think looks through a lot of city-owned property for their programming. So they toured the properties, they confirmed that they were in reasonable enough condition to acquire and rehab, and then that's where then the conversation happened with the land bank and PHDC to say, okay, submit your application, we'll review that, and then we'll get started on the transfer request.
Got it. So once they are in your hands, we don't know if they're salvageable or not. That's for the applicants to determine.
Yeah, that's true. Yes.
Right.
So there's
And if they say, oh, we're not interested in, it's going to cost too much money, then what do we do? Turn it into a demo site, I guess?
So ideally, we are, and we're trying to avoid taking anything that's there's a couple of exceptions in there, but we're mostly trying to avoid taking properties that are that close to the line that we're not quite sure.
Right. So if we see, it's just visual, if we see it's a complete disaster, we really just go through, PLI, and hopefully they demo it rather than put them in your hands and nobody wants it, right?
Right.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so that was an answer to one of my questions, was how do you choose the inventory and what to take and not take, Have you have any properties from my district yet?
No, we haven't.
I know.
But we would love to.
Well, maybe I don't have that many. I don't know.
So I know we've reviewed, and I think that's a good question as well. So I think what council has seen so far is, the land bank is kind of jumping in midstream, right? We have this really robust system of entities that are working to acquire and rehab properties, and so many of these conversations were already happening, right? PHDC has been and will be looking through the city inventory for structures, so we kind of jumped in midstream and said, oh, you found these, great, we can help with them. And I think your district is a great example of, but we do have the data to reasonably sort through and create lists of properties that we can target that are still in decent condition and vacant and not on the demo list or on a track to be on the demo list.
Yeah, in a perfect world, I don't have any, but I know I have many.
Yes.
So
yeah,
I'd
I
like
think
to
maybe
see
40
you
or
get
50.
active in my district
Yeah.
and, acquiring whatever. I'm not sure exactly how you spot and find them. Like you say, we have the data for it, right?
Right. Yes.
So, I know I have many, many, many of them. I see them, I drive by them all the time. So yeah, it's looking forward to you working over there. And I don't want to put you on the spot, but you had mentioned you need more resources to, if we were to stabilize properties on our own and then put them out for applicants. I know we started out with $10 million and we took $3 million for something or another. So you had $7 million to work with? We
have $3.5 million. It's American Rescue Plan funding. So
right.
I think that the amount of American Rescue Plan funding that we currently have is appropriate because of how tight the deadlines are to spend that funding and have it obligated.
But the total funding you had was how much?
We did start with 10, went to 7,
went to 7.
But the current budget is 3.5 million.
Okay,
yes,
so you had 7, so you're through you have 3.5 left.
Yes. That's
so you're halfway. You're through half there, and you did that in how long? How many months? That was just months, right?
When you say you're halfway, do you mean?
I mean through the $7 million that you have.
We just have 3.5 million. So that the half of that money was dedicated to additional stabilization for property not coming through the land bank.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
So you just have 3.5 million to work
Yes.
with. And how much of that is left?
We're just beginning to draw that down now.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes. But I think it also with the restrictions on the American Rescue Plan funding is that funding can only be applied to staffing costs through this year. So we do have we're moving towards a fiscal cliff where we don't have adequate funding to even cover the existing staff time that we use.
Right. And obviously, you're going to need more staffing, I would think, right? Yeah, you're still the only person?
We have 2.5 dedicated staff,
right.
And then we have many URA staff that spend time on our work as well. So it's funding to cover that staffing we use from the URA, and then ideally we would have someone to do the construction and property management and someone to handle closings, because that is we are really paper pushers at the Pittsburgh Land Bank. So someone who can draft documents and handle closings would really is absolutely essential.
At the pace in which you're going, would you envision one other full-time staffer, 2? What do you feel you need to continue at this pace?
I think
into the future.
The 2 additional, and we do have a part-time administrative assistant. So I think that moving that person into full-time someone to handle closings and someone to handle the inventory management, construction review, just having that expertise on how to really do those single-family rehabs correctly would make a huge difference in our capacity.
Sure, right. You're learning all facets, which is good as a director, you know. So, okay, yeah, I just really want to see some activity in my district. I see a lot of properties coming in and out, but I don't see anything from District 4, and I know I have them, they exist. But great job, you know. Obviously, you're going to need funding in the future, and we're going to have to look at that as a council as to, you know, how much and what you're going to need and how many people and all that stuff. But so you there is no profit there is no money that comes in. And
That's an interesting question.
Okay.
So I think a lot of land banks, especially our sister land bank, the Tricog Land Bank, to the east of us, about 60% of their budget comes from sales, comes from the sales of their single-family homes.
that sounds perfect. You know, that's where I hope you go to, because obviously we're going to, you know, we're not going to have the budget to probably fund you like we did even this time around. So if you can be self-sufficient in sales, I mean, that's, you know.
Yeah, and I think that's then where the balance comes in of talking about affordability and structure preservation and serving owner occupants, finding that right balance between all of that programming.
Right,
yeah.
right. Is there got to be legislation required for you to profit? No.
No?
So you look at Tricog, what they do, you could just copy the model, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Why aren't we doing it now?
Well, again, I think that capacity-wise, I feel much more confident having these strong partners who are walking alongside of us that have all this experience. You know, and affordability is a really important part of our mission as well.
Of course.
So I think this, again, kind of talking about how we jumped in midstream. This was we just jumped in, and these were the projects that were there that were moving the capacities that is there. This single family home program is something brand new.
Right.
So
Do you know how Tricog profits?
exactly how they
Yeah, I mean, how do they sustain, or how do they, you know, where do they get that 60% from? Is it from the sale to the applicant, or is there a fee, or, you know?
the sale, in the sale to the applicant,
Okay.
and that's a common practice of land banks.
It should
Land banks
be.
generally
Yeah,
are
it
not
should be.
self-sustaining, but they
Right.
are able to make some revenue through those private market sales.
Yeah. We got to move toward that, I think, in order to sustain you and the staff that you're going to need moving forward, because you're full steam ahead now, I feel like, and you know, it's just going to grow. At least your headaches with it, and, you know, staffing needs and all that. So, okay, no, great job, Sally.
Thanks,
really
Councilman
impressed.
Coghill.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Still on first round, I have Councilwoman Gross online.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be brief. Other council members have really dug into the details, but Sally, it seems to me that you are doing exactly what council asked the land bank to do. You know, again, I've just heard other people's comments, and the first batch of properties we saw were all going to long-term stewards of properties that had been used for urban ag, and to ensure that they were able to take possession of those to maintain their urban ag sites. And it sounds like this batch is mostly going to affordable housing uses. So did I hear all that correctly?
Yes, that is correct. The vast majority are going into an affordable housing pipeline.
Thank you again, and appreciate that. I just want to say, if it hadn't been said clearly at the table, thank you for moving these forward, and it's exactly what council hoped the land bank would do, and so that's what we're seeing out of it. So I appreciate that. I do think there's always lots of conversation around property of the land bank, and I do feel that some of the questions and lines of questions today at the table kind of just speak to the fact that, well, it's not, you know, I'm fully supported today and don't need to follow up on those threads, that we're happy to continue to follow up on those lines of questioning so we can see what more the city can do. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Gross.
Thank you, Councilwoman. So moving to second round, I have Councilperson Warwick, followed by Councilman Mosley.
So the question around the side yard versus land bank, that's sort of, so I wanted to ask, just to clarify for myself and also for the public. So if you have been taking care of the lot next to yours, right, for however long, just so I understand sort of the options on the table. So you can either go to the city and request through the side yard, just request to purchase it, in which case you're approved, if you're approved to purchase, right, you're doing outstanding taxes or whatever. If you're approved to purchase, then it goes up for auction, and anyone else who might be interested in that property and is also approved to purchase, then you would be bidding against them.
Only if you would object to the sale. So if someone applies and then someone else objects, then it goes into auction. So it's not every time that there's an auction per se. It's just if someone else expresses interest in the city sale or a side lot.
So if you know that there is someone else, okay, all right, so I'm understanding. And in that case, so if no one objects, then what, the city just sets the price at
$200 for the side lot, yeah.
All right. On the other hand, so if you're worried about a situation like that, like maybe that you're, whatever, maybe an LLC has just bought the house on the other side of the lot, and, we could help move the lot into the land bank and then quasi reserve it for the person who's been taking care of it all that time. But what kind of price difference? I'm just curious, like, what kind of price difference are we looking at in that case?
Which is a significant consideration. So to purchase a lot from the city, the land bank pays $2,200. We are just getting started on quiet title, so we don't have a good average yet, but we're saying $3,000 to be conservative in our estimate.
Okay.
If there's maintenance costs that go into maintaining the property, which in some cases there might not be, if it is that case where someone's been maintaining it. I think the Allegheny Land Trust properties that we're working on are a good example. We're not going to be cutting the grass at the old Allegheny Community Garden, so there wouldn't be any maintenance costs accrued. But potentially maintenance costs. There's and then we try to factor in some of the staffing costs, the time to process that. So that puts us at 55. So between like $5,500 to $7,500, just on average. And it's a consideration with the city too. There is always a chance when you're quieting title, you'll run into a lien that we're not able to wipe away. Mm-hmm. So that could factor in as well. So you're looking at 200 versus maybe up to 7,500, maybe close to $10,000. So we have a pilot side lot that's coming through our program, where that is exactly what happened. There was an out-of-state LLC that objected to the sale to the longtime, that the longtime resident was trying to purchase the parcel. It's a very thin sliver of a parcel that is part of the yard of the house. Mm-hmm. And so the council member canceled the sale, and there just was no path forward for this resident to acquire the property. And in that case, they preferred our price to the uncertainty of someone from out of state with very deep pockets trying to purchase the parcel. So, but I don't know that, especially with side lots, probably the vast majority of cases may not be a good fit for the land bank. But we're kind of working through that case by case as they come along. So, and certainly if anything comes up, we're always happy to review anything that might come before members.
Okay. And does the land bank have discretion as to whether or not to charge for all the, or to just eat the costs?
We do have that discretion. It is really not a financially viable option for us to. It's certainly possible, and if there are appropriate situations, then, I think that the board can consider and staff can consider that. But I think we will be out of business pretty quickly if we meet the city's $200 side lot sale price, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, it might be something to look at again on a case-by-case basis, but it would. I feel like if there is a case of, a single, someone who's owner occupied and, has been taking care of the lot next door, and some LLC is going to outbid them like that at a city auction, and the land bank is that I think that's something that, and it probably isn't happening a lot. I mean, I don't know, but hopefully something we can consider on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
That's a good question.
Thank you. Councilman Mosley.
Sure. Yeah. My final question. I wanted for you to talk a little bit about how 104, the property on Chartiers Avenue, is a little different. As we talked, like most of the properties are around stabilization and rehabilitation of owner-occupied affordable housing. But this one, and this was, my first, land bank meeting, and I thought it was interesting because, I do have knowledge of the future owner of this property. But if you could talk a little bit about, how a brief narrative of this particular property and how it's a little bit different from many of the other properties we discussed today and what generally comes to the land bank.
Yes, thank you, Councilman Mosley. And she was on the other side of my sheet, so I missed Farmer Girl Ebb. And I'm sure if Councilmember Cale Smith was here, she would also chime in with wonderful things to say about Farmer Girl Ebb. Ebony has a garden that she runs, I believe, in Sheridan. And so this would be a fresh food stand where she would be selling fresh vegetables produced in the neighborhood out of this pretty small building on Chartiers Avenue. So lots of good visibility and plenty of parking, if that's something you care about. And I think it was some kind of restaurant prior to the city acquiring the property. Yeah. So I think what great symbolism, turning a prior pizza shop into a fresh food stand. And I believe that she's also received URA grant funding for her business as well. So it's a really nice synergy where the land bank can work on the property acquisition, and she was able to access some grant funding for that business.
Thank you.
Councilman Coghill.
Thank you. So just a couple follow-ups. The inventory that you have, how did you decide, or how did that come into your hands?
Great question. So still, there is one property in the land bank's inventory right now. That property was actually purchased by PHDC at the treasurer sale, and then the land bank has since acquired it and is working to quiet title. And that's just a kind of a small side lot in the Hill District. So everything else right now is coming out of the city's inventory. I should have around 25 properties that will be transferred this week or next. And those are mostly lots. And then we've got more structures coming along from the last batch that council approved.
Okay. And again, so how did you focus, or how did you decide on those specific properties? Did they come to you? Was it a council member? I mean, how is it that those 25 or so that you're moving this week, how is it that they came to your attention? I mean,
the majority, if not all, were the end user had identified the property and had maybe even had requested from the URA previously to purchase that property, or had put in an application at the city. But the lots were all identified by the end users. And those end users are majority nonprofit CDC.
right, like PHDC.
Yes.
So they bring them to your attention.
Right.
That's how that's why we've decided on these certain properties.
Right.
Maybe they're not working in my district then. It might be their fault, right?
Well, I think if Mr. Snipe was sitting here next to me, he would say we would be more than happy to come.
Yeah,
to
I need them. You know,
District
we need
4.
them over
Yeah.
there, right? So,
Absolutely. So
okay.
Very eager to.
Yeah,
to
I'm
get
just wondering
started.
how we
Yeah.
get them on the radar, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if is it me, is it but you're saying the end user, the applicants, are the ones that really bring them to your attention. So they're bringing ones to your attention that they want.
Right. Which is where we've started, and it's been really important just to start that we have that end user identified, because the lift to move the property out of our inventory is less when we already know from the beginning who's purchasing.
Right.
That's not how I want our programming to go forever, but to get our, to just take that first step. I think it was really crucial that we had those partners in place. And a couple of the properties they'd gone through the whole URA process. They went through that rigorous review to make sure they were ready to go and fully funded. And we were able to just step in at the end and help facilitate the sale.
Yeah, so it's fair to say the reason why we are not looking in District 4 or have any properties on the slate from District 4 is because the end users are not bringing them to your attention.
Right? Yes.
Right.
And
Okay.
a lot of this is really for a long time, a lot of the movement is driven by community development corporations, of which I think there are less that operate in District 4. So, which I think is an excellent opportunity for the land bank to step in and make sure that when there is property that needs to be turned over and put back to the community, that we can step in and do that.
Okay, I'm just trying to make sure I get the ones in my district on the radar and in your inventory, and just make sure somebody brings them to your attention. So that explains why, again, I don't think the end users are looking in my district. And if that's the only way they're coming to your attention, then you're not going to get anything from my district if they're not looking in my district. So I need to either talk to the end users, or we need the end users focusing all over the city. And,
Well, and we have that data pulled for District 4,
Yeah.
and so we're on it. I'm happy to
they just might
make
not
sure
be
we whittle
interested
that list
in
down.
District 4, for whatever reasons. I mean, developers, and I know these aren't really developers per se, but, they,
Yeah.
for whatever reason, they're not focusing in my district. So I need them to focus, or somebody, or
And
another end
yeah.
user, I don't know, an end user that has interest in.
And I think land bank direct residential sales
Got
is D4 is the poster child for
Okay, good.
for that type of programming.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's
So we're on it.
the easy sales if they get a little
Yeah.
TLC, Okay, the other thing was, explain to me again, okay, I know you have $3.5 million to work with. You had $7 million total. That other $3.5 million that you're not using for your operation went to where?
So that is stabilizing properties in the Urban Redevelopment Authority's inventory. It's part of a violence prevention program focusing on blight. So they specifically
Couldn't you
targeted
use that money
properties.
for your operations? Or are you afraid you couldn't spend it in time? Or, I mean, the URA, don't they have their own resources for stabilization?
For property maintenance, not so much.
What?
Yeah, and I don't want to speak too much on
Yeah, I understand.
on programming on URA programming.
I just saying it just seems so crazy to me that you have $7 million to work with, and you're giving the URA or assigning the URA $3.5 million to stabilize when I think they got $1 billion or so. No,
And I really appreciate you
Okay.
saying that, because we absolutely do need more financial support at the land
Yeah,
bank.
that's-
But unfortunately, the American Rescue Plan funding requirements, they are timely and a bit onerous. And so in order to get that money spent before we lose it,
Yeah, you're afraid maybe you wouldn't be able to spend that total of $7.
I think it was it was a really good financial decision, because that property was in the inventory, and they're like, way ahead on getting ready to implement and spend that money down this year before we hit our first big deadline at the end of
Maybe the
2024.
URA will gift you $3.5 million next year, right?
Well, they have so much important work that they do. I
I
don't know that.
but they have so much money too, so I don't think they need your money, but whatever. Okay, so all right, I appreciate it. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion from council? Second round. Seeing none, all those in favor of the bills as read, say aye.
Aye.
There's affirmative recommendation on these bills, and that actually does wrap up the agenda of the meeting. We do have some meeting announcements. This afternoon at 1:30 p.m., Council will hold a cablecast public hearing on Bill 2023-2327 as it relates to authorization for property owners to operate a major public destination facility electronic sign at West General Robinson Street and Mazeroski Way. Tomorrow, Thursday, February 15th, Council will hold a briefing to discuss police scheduling with sessions at 12:30 p.m. and 1 p.m. Next week, Council will hold its regular meeting on Tuesday, February 20th at 10 a.m. and Wednesday, February 21st at 9:30 a.m. There will be a pre-agenda interview on Bill 2024-119, appointing David Green as PLI Director, followed by the 10 a.m. Standing Committees meeting. To register to speak at council meetings and hearings, please fill out the sign-up form on the council meeting webpage. You may also call the clerk's office at 412-255-2138. Any further discussion from council members? Seeing none, can we have a motion to excuse the absent member, approve the minutes, and adjourn the meeting? Oh, Councilman Wilson.
Sorry, before we go there, can I register aye votes for the bills that I missed? Thanks.
So noted. Any further discussion? All right. So we have a motion to excuse the absent member, approve the minutes, and adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Second. A meeting is adjourned. Thank you.